So welcome everybody to the West Coast Blender user group based out of Los Angeles. We're one of, I think, 15 or 16 different user groups around the nation. We have a good agenda for you today. So first off, we usually start with what's new with Blender. So it's been 3 months and 1 week since we presented our last Blender user group meeting. A lot that can happen in that time. So we try to organize these meetings around major Blender releases. So there's like enough to talk about and gives people enough time to kind of work on their personal projects or their professional projects and come with stuff to share. So we're going to do a quick what's new, which is just a really fast roundup. I try to pass quickly to somebody like David Andrade, so I'm not presenting the whole time. Always challenging to get that first session in 15 minutes, but I'll see how I do today. David's going to present on new Blender 3.6 features, which are pretty cool. And then we're going to do a break and socialize. One of the big benefits of these meetings is to get to know your peers, right? So, we were having conversations before the meeting about, some of you guys are into your TDs and pipelines. Well, we have other people that come in that are TDs and pipelines. Some people are primarily compositors. You want to meet the people that do that. Sometimes there's, animation studios like what David does, and maybe you're trying to do that. So find your peers and socialize is a big element of this. In case I forget to mention it, after the meeting, we usually retire. We walk down the street to a place that serves like wings and pizza and beer and wine and, just beverages and food. And they have a nice outdoor patio, and we just hang out after the meeting. So feel free to join us. It's a short walk, and first round's on me. So next, we're going to have Darius talk about the needle engine exporter for Blender. We have Kenneth, who I heard was in the room. Is that you, Kenneth? Or that's you? You're Kenneth. Okay. Talk about Blender at Asylum VFX and what's going on there. We're going to have another break. And then my favorite part of the session, which is a show and tell, where you guys just bring your thumb drives, come up, plug them in. We open your stuff, and you can kind of show off what you've been doing in Blender. So if you have a Blender-centric project, obviously it doesn't need to be the only package you use. We'd love to hear about it. So I've tried to, that got cut off during our last meeting because we had so many good sessions, but I tried to leave a little bit more time this time around. Any questions on that before we move on? We kind of have a small group, so we can be as interactive as you guys want to. Yeah, okay. Awesome. So because we sometimes get large groups, I try to explain what is Blender, right? Just very, very briefly. So for those that have never seen the package before, I'm guessing all of us have. Anybody not seen the package before? Fantastic. I'll make this super quick. It does all of this stuff. It's 100% free. And the best thing about it is it has a really amazing community of people to interact with, collaborate with, help out. You can interact directly with the developers. They have a conference coming up in October. I'll talk about it in just a minute. That you can go meet everybody. It's a fantastic community. So feel free to ask questions or where to find certain information. Everybody's extremely helpful here. Okay, and then I'm going to just jump into what's happening with Blender. So, So a week ago or so, we had the Blender 3.6 long-term release. So this is the last of the 3.x series for Blender. The next version is Blender 4.0, which is really exciting. That's usually where you see big evolutionary leaps. So a lot of the stuff that made it into Blender 3.6 are more evolutionary releases. And the LTS long-term release, they support it for, I think it's like 3 years. Said 3 years? Yeah, I think it's somewhere around 3 years. So like Blender 3.36, just down here, that'll actually be supported until like September 2024, right? So this helps big studios that need stability in their software have something that's fully supported, patched all the time, supported by the folks that develop it. So I'm not going to go into too many details here because David's going to cover this in just a second. But there are some pretty exciting stuff in Blender 3.6. Simulation nodes in particular has me extremely excited. And because I'm a rendering nerd, I really love all the cycles improvements that they put in. So I'll leave it at that and let say the the thunder for David. Blender 4.0 Alpha is released. So if you want to go download it, you can download it now and play around with some really exciting stuff in that. There are release notes up for that. And by the way, if you just email me, sterling@pixelfire.org, you get a copy of this deck. I link out to all this stuff. In terms of, I try to give a smattering of what's going on across these three topics here, these next three topics, just to give you an idea of kind of what's happened since our last meeting. 3 months is an eternity in the world of Blender, so this is not comprehensive, but there's been a new Blender Open movie announced called Project Gold. So Project Gold, so open movies are the Blender Foundation's way of A, one side of their business being creative and making great animated films, and B, the other side of the business developing the software to keep up with the needs of cutting edge animated film development. So yeah, a question there? Or, oh, so you're trying to wave somebody in. Okay, yeah. So anyways, Project Gold looks really exciting down here. These are kind of like conceptual artists, renditions of it. It's going to be very stylistic, kind of a pirate theme. They're doing some very bold things with simulation nodes and with creating geometry nodes as operators, which is kind of a really neat move for the software to enable artists to art direct their own creative effects through high level controls. We have Google, and you could read more about the Project Gold movie on the Blender Cloud. There's some Google Summer of Code projects. Get verification. Which Google every year puts out grants of money for people to get student developers to work on things. And so the Blender Foundation applies for that every year. So some of the projects that we won developers for, and you probably won't see this at least for another Blender version, but just nice to know these things are being worked on. So there's Flamenco developments. Flamenco is a render management platform. That's right. It's a render management platform in the cloud. That's free, developed by the Blender Foundation for their own movies, and you can use it. You can actually, the video sequence editor is the built-in editor for Blender, so it's getting a little bit of love around wave 4 drawing. UV editor improvements. There's been a whole bunch of UV editor improvements in the software in this version, so there's even more to come. Shader editor node previews are getting improved. And then the outliner tree in the software, which is how you organize all of your objects. Just going to close this a little bit. There we go. Which is in the software, how you kind of organize your meshes and all of that stuff. That actually gets improved a little bit also. So some of the other stuff going on, there's been released a Blender 2003 Q2 roadmap. So if you've heard about like some of the really cool features that are coming, like light linking or I don't know, some of the Grease Pencil 3, and you're wondering, hey, when's that gonna hit? Well, Delay Falento, who was actually presented at our last Blender meeting here, actually has built like this really nice Gantt chart where you just go look and see exactly what month it's gonna fall and in what version. So really awesome stuff. I mean, kind of kudos to the amount of transparency that the development team uses. Some other stuff. I don't know if we mentioned this in the last meeting, but if you've seen the movie Everything Everywhere All at Once, there's like a giant dark donut threatening the existence of multi-dimensional space. That was made in Blender. There's a nice article on how they use that, not to be affiliated with our great donuts in the side of the room here, brought by Sean. By the way, help yourself to the donuts. And then, Ian Hubert's been busy, of course, with his Dynamo Dream series. So this is a series of movies that he does using Blender. Hi, come on in. Come on in. Grab a seat. This is the Blender user group meeting. So feel free to take a seat and learn about it. There's also an ongoing pet projects movie. So that's this down here. So by the way, this is a shot from Dynamo's Dream. down here, this is the Pets project. So this is an animated open movie that the Blender Foundation is making. By open movie, they release all of the assets. So they're super transparent about every process as they go through this stage of the filmmaking. You can go to their weeklies, literally drop into their weeklies and listen to them, like talking about the shots they're working on, the animation, the shading, the lighting. They produce tutorials on how they do all the effects, and they release all the assets for free. So you could literally go download their models and make your own movies with it if you like. There's no restrictions on it. And it looks really cool. It's entering post-production, so we should see that movie, I think, in the next couple of months. Ravenblade, which is this over here. So this is actually like a 5 versus 5 video game made by two brothers using Blender. I just thought it was worth calling out because it looks pretty cool. And then, I wanted to call out Professional Studios. So Marathon by Bungie, who's based out of Seattle, is like a successor to like the Halo franchise. They're using Blender for that. So if you click this link, you'll actually get to like some making of stuff where you can see them using Blender to do like asset work on the game. And then Alan Wake, which again, that's a pretty big title, Alan Wake 2, that's made out of the Nordics. They're also using Blender Remedy. We have a number of LA-based game studios, by the way, that do use Blender. This is a really interesting project. So in the software space, Affinigen is a software package that has been released by Princeton's Vision and Learning Lab that procedurally generates massive landscapes using Blender as the engine. So I'm just going to actually, I think, hold on one second. I'm going to stop presenting for a moment because I think when I started presenting, I failed to click the include system sound, and there we go. Okay, so I'm going to just play this because it's absolutely fascinating to watch. And it's only 3 minutes. In fact, I'll just let's see. I'll just speed it up here as well. Maybe we'll do it at this speed. David, can you hear that audio?
Yes.
Wonderful. Pretty cool, eh? Has anybody played around with it? Sorry, was that a yeah?
What did you say?
Affinigen. Have you played around with the tool?
Oh, no.
So yeah. So anyways, I just think that's super cool that there's people building tools like that, just giving them away for free.
Have you played with it?
I have not played with it just yet. This kind of reminds me of during our last meeting, we talked about the fact that Google has a new add-in for Blender that lets you pull in Google Maps data, and you could literally create any city on Earth within the Blender 3D viewport, complete with textures and everything. It's like kind of amazing. And of course, that's coupled with a number of add-ons that pull in GIS information and all sorts of the city generators. So really cool stuff going on. Yeah, real quick, there's a new version of BlendRig available. Pablo's kind of put this great overview video together for that. Blender Kit is like a great tool if you just want like an asset library of textures and models and that kind of thing. Some of the training events that are going on. So the Blender conference is coming up in Amsterdam. That happens in October. Take you out there. So tickets go on sale this month. They typically sell out. So they're saying early July right now, but then a couple of weeks ago they were saying late June. So it sounds like they're probably getting their ticketing system up and running or whatever. But a number of us go to those meetings, including Sean. I'm planning on going this year, Sean, if you are.
Are you?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, we should coordinate flights or something. Oh, no. Okay. Well, they have their call for anybody else planning on going to that? All right. They have their call for presentations out. If anybody changes their mind, they're taking session presentations. A couple other things. Let's see. So, I talk about Punisher's CG contest. He does these kind of amazing CG contests where he starts off with he kind of starts off with a concept and then people submit all of these little short animations that all follow like the same format. A lot of these are made in Blender, and you can actually learn quite a bit from watching like the making ofs of all of these. They're super cool, in my opinion. Let's see. Design your own home remodel. There's a series of tutorials. The only reason I mentioned this one, and this includes some tools to actually do home remodel in Blender. The only reason I mentioned this is we've had a couple of presentations of people that have learned Blender specifically for home remodel in our meetings. And then Blender at Annecy. So we take part in this digital content creation. The Blender Foundation takes part in the digital content creation Annecy conference. You could hear about that. There's a new course out, paid for course called Mastering Simulation Nodes. It's by this guy who was responsible for one of the Blender splash screens. And you learn all sorts of basic stuff like how to do bouncing balls, how to do voids, which are like swarming, fish school kind of stuff, how to do erosion, all that kind of stuff you used to do in Nuke. And then real quick, that we are in the process right now of planning a Blender conference in Los Angeles. It's to be confirmed because we're pitching it to leadership. We're fronting money for it, but we've got a venue. We know we're starting to target speakers. It's going to be most likely a very small and personal event, like 200 people, 250 people. So we expect it to sell out quickly. We're really excited at the quality of sessions that we're planning, and I can't wait to tell you more about it, but at the moment it's still very much TBC, but I can talk about it in a future call. And with that, just real quick, if you're new to Blender or kind of a Blender curious rather than a Blender veteran, these are some websites you should know. So obviously where to download Blender. This is the LA Times of Blender. This is where you go to meet fellow Blender artists and collab. Blender Artist is, both of these will take you to communities. Blender Artist being one of the bigger communities. This is where you get your pre-release versions of Blender. And then the rest of these are just a couple of great tutorial websites, if you're new to Blender and need to learn more. And with that, David, I know I'm running a little bit long, so with that,
no, you're good.
Why don't we turn things over to you? Maybe you can. I think you already did your intros, right? So why don't you take the desktop share and go from there?
Sounds like a plan. Okay. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, depending on when you're watching this. All right, so we're going to share screen. Do you see an amazing logo I made in about 10 seconds?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Christmas in July because, you know, it's Christmas in July, so really exciting. Okay, now give me 1 second. Let me get everything set up over here. All right, so let's talk about what's new inside of Blender. There's a lot, and in fact, the easiest way, I know there's like that main page if you go to just the Blender website. So let's just go here really quick. If you haven't been to blender.org, we talked a little bit about this, blender.org, and then of course you can click on what's new, and you have this really nice overview. By the way, I'm going to look a lot this way because I have a second monitor over here with everything. This is a great simple overview of what's new. I'm sure all of us have heard of this, but you never know. So this is a great like major features kind of overview. But if you're like me and you want to go really nitty gritty, you also can just look up the Blender release notes and dive into every single little feature, every single little thing in here. And you, again, just Google Blender release notes and this will come up, and there's so many things that get added, and you can generally see the actual commit if you really want to go really that deep. It's also kind of fun if you want to take a peek at what's coming in 4.0. So there's a lot of cool stuff already coming in 4.0 that all of this is going to get filled out over time, but you can take a look easily and see what's coming. And just to give you a schedule, sometimes people don't know when are these things coming. Well, Blender 4.0 is slated sometime around BCon, if not just in the early weeks of November of this year. So it's hot on the heels of a release. Pretty exciting. Okay, so let's talk about what is new in 3.6. There's a lot of really great stuff here. I'm not going to hit every single feature because there's a bazillion of them. But I am going to talk about, bring over my notes here. I'm going to talk about some of the ones that I think are pretty cool. All right. So let's take a look at the first one. Here's a little character from an animated series that I work on. So I'm just going to join everything. I'm going to hit Tab, hit A, and you can see I have UVs all over the place. This is super, super messy. Admittedly, each one of these is a separate texture, but nonetheless, he's kind of like all over the place, right? So what do we do about this? How do we fix this guy? How do we pack these? Well, in the past, I'm going to turn this off for a second. In the past, you would go to UV Pack Islands, and it would use bounding box, right? That was the default way. But now in 3.6, there's a new way called concave or exact shape. And you got a bunch of other settings. So I'm not going to do nothing. I'm just going to leave it by default, which is concave. And I'm going to click on OK. Oh, well, actually, I got to select everything. All right, so let's do that. Pack Islands, click on OK. It's going to think about it. And there we go. I now have, got to unselect it really quick. There we are. So now I have all of this nicely packed. And we can compare really quick UV, Pack Islands, and go to bounding box method. And actually, you know what? That one's not too bad, to be honest with you. It's these two big blocks over here. But it is a little different. Let me undo him really quick. I'm just going to go back to the original version really fast. I'm going to get rid of these guys in the back. Hold on. There we go. All right, so I'm going to just separate these guys out. Okay, so if we come over to UV Pack Islands and we just go to bounding box, you know, bounding box works okay. This is what it was like in 3.5 and before. And Pack Islands, concave, exact shape, it's going to pack them in a much, much nicer way. This is a little bit of a better demo because some of these are really kind of big blocks. So this kind of shows off how it packs everything quite nicely. And that's pretty big. Just packing has been always a big pain inside Blender. And I'm just really happy that that one really got taken care of a lot better. Of course, there's other options. You can even play with the rotation method, etc., how much margin you want. Let's just say you want a 0.1 or something like that. We'll let it do its thing. It's processing down here. Hey, look at that. Now that's obviously with a really wide margin if you really wanted that, but you can tell again how it kind of packs everything really neatly. So UV packing, that's really, really cool. All right, so we go down the list. There's so many features in here. I am just going to pick out some of my favorites. By the way, Lampel does a really good overview of all of these, so I highly recommend you check his out. Let's talk about simulation. Now, for those of you who have been using Blender forever, you might know that particles and particle simulation in Blender is, well, not as performant. Tricky might be the best way to describe it. So let's talk about simulation zone. All right, let's talk about simulation zone. So let me get my here. Okay, get my teams up here and get my notes. All right, so let's talk about simulation zone and what is it? Well, if you're not familiar with geometry nodes, when you first load Blender, you can go ahead and at the top here, click on geometry nodes and then click on new. So we have our little cube. Now it's created a modifier called geometry nodes. And if you don't know what these are, it just allows you to do anything like connect nodes and create a whole bunch of really cool stuff. So for example, let's just add an extrude just really quick. There we go, that's it, right? So I can turn that on, I can turn it off, I can mute it, and I'm able to manipulate this mesh really easily, right? Super, super cool. We can subdivide it at the end, or maybe we want to subdivide it in the beginning and just connect these and ooh, demo effect. All right, well, oh yeah, we are subdividing it, but on a small level. All right, so geometry nodes, super cool. Now for this next part, we're going to do some simulation and we need a lot of geo. So I'm just going to set that to 3, click on geometry nodes. All right, so I should have a sphere, nothing too crazy, right? Subdivision up front. And we got this here. So let's go ahead and click on add and you'll see a new thing called simulation zone. All right, let's put simulation zone right here and we want to connect this input and this output. Now, here's the thing about simulations. Like all things simulated in Blender, it stacks. It's a serial kind of thing, not parallel, it's serial. So whatever the previous frame has done, it's going to go to the next frame and stack a bunch of stuff and run the sim all over again and then output it. This is important because this right here works on the very first frame when you play, right? And then this over here gets outputted every single frame. So you can have a bunch of stuff in the front, but it'll only evaluate once. Then everything inside of here will get evaluated each and every single frame and then outputted. So let's demonstrate that. We're going to add that extrude all over again, extrude right here. And here we go. Now I'm going to drop this to like 0.1 so I don't kill my machine and maybe even just drop my simulation down a little bit. Okay, so frame 1, all we've done is add an extrude. I'm going to move over another frame, move over another frame, move over another frame. And I can scroll down here at the top left, and I have a lot of vertices here. So I'll just, I'm at 60,000 vertices. I'm going to go down another frame. I've gone from 60,000 now to 300,000. I'm just stacking over and over and over. But remember, it's simulated, and you can tell down here, by the way, there's a little like kind of red-ish situation happening here. That's an indication to you that it has saved it in the cache and that this is a simulation. So somewhere around like 9, my computer will totally freeze up in my demo. So, you know, we're at 7.5 or 75 million right now, 75 million vertices. So let's go back to the beginning where we had just maybe only 480. Okay, so that's how simulation works. It stacks one frame prior to the next and the next and the next. So let's make this even more interesting. And if you've seen the simulation demo earlier, you can kind of see where I'm going with this. That's the simulation video that the Blender Foundation had put out already. So random value, we're going to say, let's grab a random seed and let's go to Boolean. And maybe we just want a chance of 0.0, let's just say 0.02. Okay, and let's just drop that into selection. All right, so now we're going to just randomly pick a face to extrude. Just randomly pick a face to extrude. Now, here's the thing. This scene time gets evaluated every single frame, and a random value gets piped in here, and there we go. So now we're able to do it. Every single frame, we get a new thing to evaluate and a new thing to grow. So that's really cool. And I can skip ahead to 66. But this just means all I've gone ahead and done is skip one frame. I'm actually not accounting for all the frames between here. If I want to do that, you can see it actually starts to like, Blender just hates you doing that. So we have to go to the beginning and actually play and evaluate this correctly. And you can see now that my 65 looks a lot different than from before when I had just started here. I'll just change this to like a different number really quick so that it can kind of demonstrate the concept again. So we'll come back to the beginning. And by the way, you can change this value. You can animate this. Oh, there we go. You can animate this value. And so then it will say, oh, at this frame, you changed it. So remember, all of this gets input into this frame, evaluates all of that, and then spits it out. This evaluates every single frame, and this just inputs it once. So just keep in mind that. All right, so we have ourselves a really cool mesh going on here. Now, what if you are a wizard at simulation? Well, I am just a newbie at simulation, but I'm going to pick out one of the cool demos that is available on Blender's website. And again, you may have seen this already, you may not be familiar with it, but I just want to show this off. If anyone's watching this for the very first time, you can go to blender.org, click on download demo files, and scroll down. At this point, it's under simulation, but it might be a little further down as time goes on. And you can see these two demos that I'm going to show off, particle simulation and then index of nearest. So you can see both of those right here and download the blend file. And that's what this is right here. Now, I've gone ahead and disabled a key feature because I just want to demonstrate how this works. So let's go to frame 1 and let's just hit play. And this is awesome. This is all being generated. It's running at a good 25. Let's actually kick it up to say 30 frames a second. There we go. Or you know what? Let's go all the way to 60. Go all the way to 60 frames a second. And we'll end this at whatever, 1,000, just let it run for a long time, right? So this is holding above 60 frames a second beautifully. And man, as someone who's been using Blender particles for ages for commercials and VFX and everything, this could be slow, but here it is running and it's just kicking butt. It's evaluating and running perfectly just at a super high frame rate, all through geometry nodes. I'm just going to open this up really quick, and you can see what's happening here. Remember that scene time, how that gets evaluated every single frame? We're going to go ahead and then generate some points. We're going to create a vector here to add some velocity. Here's our simulation zone. Again, here's a zone that we were talking about. This gets evaluated every single frame. It'll just run and simulate this each and every single time. We're going to take that geometry. We're going to join it with another bit of geometry up here. And this, by the way, this node is going to be super important. Capture attribute. That's how you're going to be able to pipe stuff in every single frame. So just keep that in mind. We're going to capture that attribute and do stuff with it, right? So that's going to be a popular node in order to control every single one of these points. And then he does some really cool like visualization at the end. Once you have this, you can go ahead and add a viewer node. So what's the velocity if it's moving super fast? You can go ahead and add a viewer and scale that. All right, but it's not really moving fast, right? There's nothing moving it. There's nothing like kind of moving it around. So what could we do? Well, there is a way you can hold down Control, Alt, or right click, and you can disable or enable nodes. And here we go. I've gone ahead and enabled another input, force acceleration fields. Now, this is a really fancy thing to basically say, hey, wherever this force is, do something with it, right? So we're just going to be attracted to that force. And you can see this visualization all the way over here This is awesome because now I can just change this to whatever color we want, but more importantly, you can see that it's definitely following this all the way around and giving us what that high velocity would be. And what's going on here? Well, it's a lot of getting the point, getting this force, and adding a noise texture to it. It's just super, super cool. And here it is, object info. This all starts with this little node right here. We're going to take this node's location and do a bunch of really cool math. Again, evaluating every single frame, or in this case, seconds. Add some noise, do some fun math, and pipe it into our simulation zone. Now, what would happen if we didn't have a simulation zone? Well, sadly, this wouldn't evaluate every single frame, and all we would get is this. So this is what you would get in 3.5 and before, just cool stuff happening. You wouldn't really get anything interesting. But now we can simulate. We can take every single one of these points and run a simulation and see what's going to happen, reevaluating. And here's the important thing. This simulation zone, what it's trying to tell you and what it does, the power, is going to take the previous data of the previous frame and stack on top of it. Serial. It's going to go one after another. It's going to take what happened before and stack on top of it and do some really cool stuff, right? So that's how we're able to get this amazing work. Because we're going to say, hey, what was the previous position? Now let's come over here and just keep stacking that. So, I mean, ultimately, that's what a simulation is, right? It's just the ability to just stack that data one to another. Now, they make a point in the release of this that this is early. They're not going to deprecate and get rid of previous particles or physics or any of that. This is just the foundation, the stepping stone. For those of you from the early Blender days, you might remember they introduced Blender library overrides in the late 2.9 series. And it was about mid 3.2 or 3, I think, where they finally got rid of the old way of doing proxy overrides. So I could see this going about halfway through the 4 release before the old way of doing particle effects finally goes away. One other cool thing about this, by the way, you can bake it. You can bake your simulation. That's super handy. I'm just going to pause that so you can see. But that's super handy because now that it's baked, I can rewind. See that? Now that it's baked, I can go ahead and rewind. So that's super cool. That gets baked to the file, by the way. There's no way to save it externally as far as I know, but I'm sure that'll come out in a future release. All right, almost done. We have 2 more cool things to show. Let's talk about a brand new node that comes along with simulation, and it's called Index of Nearest. Right, what does that mean? How does that help us? Let me just turn this off for a second. Let me just turn this off, and actually I'll just refresh the scene. There we go. And we're going to turn this off and just play it, evaluate. Nothing happens. How boring is that? Let's turn it back on, go to the beginning. Ooh. Now cool things are happening. Let me actually just mute index of nearest really quick. What if we didn't have that information? If we didn't have index of nearest, then when I'm doing these effects, it's really just affecting, well, whatever I touch. But now with index of nearest, I'm going to go back to the beginning. Now with index of nearest, I can do a really cool amount of math and just say, hey, whatever happened to this point can happen at this point, and so on, and so on, and so on. And you can kind of see what's going on here. And it's just math. We're just going to get an index of all the nearest items. And with a little bit of math, you can say, well, maybe I want a whole bunch of them. So I'm going to change this value to 1. That'll get us more items. Or maybe I don't want. Maybe I want to do it one of these ways. So I'll go back to the beginning again. You can see now if I drop this value, I'm really filtering. I just want a really thin line. I don't want to affect too many. And of course, you can go like really high. But the problem with this is you end up creating a really, really big wake. And again, it's super cool. It's just index of nearest. It's just going to list out an index of all the closest geometry or points that you are affecting, or in this case, we're just taking the position, right? So whoever is close to you, regardless of what it is. And then we're gonna do some really cool math with it. And that's present in here. It's called collider steps. So there's little group node in here. You can see it, by the way, as it grows, how cool that is. And let's come back to this, by the way. Let me just click on this little ball really quick and graph editor and wipe all of this out. Start from the beginning. I'm going to wait. I'm just going to let this kind of settle. And now I'm just going to move it. I'm moving this in real time, and it's evaluating super, super fast. I'm going to dump this to, just like before, let's go to 60 frames a second, and just give us like 10,000 frames. Let's see what happens. Go to the beginning. Okay, so now we're at 60 frames a second. I don't see my statistics up here. Let's see here. It might actually only be, can't remember exactly where statistics are, but usually statistics is up there. But anyways, let's just go ahead and move it. And you can see we're just evaluating all of this in real time. So this simulation is running, and remember, it's stacking. Whatever happened to the previous frame, we're going to just keep adding some more math to it and just doing some really cool stuff. I love it. This is definitely a game changer in Blender. The ability to use geometry nodes to do simulations. I definitely think, like, for those of us who use Houdini or familiar with it, this is definitely moving in that territory. And again, if I went ahead and just muted all of this, this is what you would get in the previous version. You couldn't really do much. You made nothing in this case. There's nothing evaluating, right? But now we can kind of stack that information and do some cool things with it. I'll mute collider step really quick. That gives us the index of nearest. Can't do anything. Nothing's going on here. But once I go ahead and manipulate it now we're able to just do a bunch of cool stuff. All right. So that is an awesome, awesome new feature inside of Blender. And I'm sure all of us are going to play quite a bit with that. I've got a pretty beefy Ryzen 3090 machine on here, and it's definitely taking a toll. And you know, by the way, those simulations, they don't have to be like crazy like particle things. They could even just be this little pudding that's going on here, right? So we can go to geometry nodes, click on our pudding, and here we go. Here's our simulation that's happening. You can see what we're doing. We're just taking that curve. We're going to resample it to get about, you know, thing of 5, so we get some density there. And then we're just going to manipulate that curve. We're just going to offset it using a bunch of fun math, here. We're just going to run a sim right on top of that. And come back to here. Let's grab our little empty. And this is running in real time. It's super awesome. And again, I'll just dump it to, we'll go to, well, you know, let's go all the way to 240. Can we do 240? Okay, it looks like they cap out at about 60, but that's what my monitor is running at too, so that makes sense. All right, so super, super cool to see. One other thing that I want to show, asset libraries. This was covered a little earlier in the I think Sterling might have mentioned it, but definitely it's in here. Go down to the bottom. Asset libraries. If you're not familiar with these, it's such a cool thing. You can go back to download demo files, and there are a few asset bundles. There's LE poses for the LE. There's this little cube diorama. Of course, there's a bunch of them that are out there these days. Blender Kit, that's the other library I'm familiar with that we use a lot. Come over to Blender Kit. Always like giving them a shout out, but they have a bunch of scenes, etc., that are also included. Some of them are paid. They have a subscription service to pay back the artist. And our friends Polyhaven. Hold on. I'm gonna make sure I get that right. I typed the wrong URL, but then there's also Polyhaven. There we go. Polyhaven also has an add-on. So Polyhaven also has the same kind of asset library add-on. And now, of course, Blender does too. How do you use it? Well, if you're not familiar, edit, preferences, file paths. There's a new thing here. It came out a few versions ago called asset libraries. You can add your own. Just go ahead and make a brand new library. You can do linking. or appending. I highly recommend appending. But the other cool thing in 3.6 is relative path. Now this is super handy. Let's say you're on a production, bunch of different artists working off, say, a shared cloud drive or a network drive or anything like that. You can now do an asset library all with relative pathing. That is brand new in 3.6. But anyways, let's just leave our user library here. And we're just going to open the demo file. And there's a little button for you, copy bundle to asset library. I'm just going to do that. And I'll dump it into downloads. Oh, sorry about that. Edit preferences. Let me get that path right. There we go. Copy bundle to user library. I'll let it think for a second. Cool. And actually, hold on. Where did you go? Where did you go? All right. Open this up. And where did my asset library, asset browser? Here we are. Okay, so now I'm in a brand new scene. I have closed off that other one. I'm going to get rid of everything in my scene. And you can see here that all of my stuff, all the new human-based meshes are right here. And what are the human-based meshes? Well, they're just super cool. Like literally left-click, drag and drop. Take a look at that. And now you have, I'm just going to zero these out, move them off to the side. Now you have all of these base meshes here available to you. I'm going to delete those. I'm going to bring in this head. There we are. I'm going to zoom into this head. And you can start working with it. All you need to do is go to Object, Library Override Make. It's going to reset it over here where it was in its original position. Yeah, the shortcut, I love shortcuts, but Alt-G is the shortcut. You can change it, transform, etc. You can clear it up here. There you go, Alt-G. Anyways, here is the mesh, and we're also using asset library. I'm sorry, library overrides. And now you can go ahead and mess with this, and you can see I can't go into edit mode. Well, that's okay. You can click on the object in your properties panel. Bring this out, get some real estate, click on the object, and just break that link if you'd like. Go ahead and, oh, sorry, here we are. I want to break this one as well. And now you can go ahead and edit this right in there. And what if you want to go back to the original? That's okay. You can just click this drop down and go back to the original right here. And now it's relinked. Of course, it means you can't edit it, but that's kind of nice because it's non-destructive. You could just always go back to it if you need to. You could break it apart in your current one and then go back to the original if you want to just like say, hey, you know what? I need that original version. Super, super cool. And I love the fact that there's an asset library now available. Oh yeah, can't override. Yeah, because I brought that in. So just super, super cool. Blender Foundation notes that they want to keep updating this, right? So this is a long-term project for them because they know that as artists are first starting out, it would be great to have like a base to work off of. One last thing, by the way, I saw this on Twitter and I really just wanted to highlight this. I think this is really awesome. This kind of came in 3.5-ish, but this is kind of a neat way to do stitching. So I just want to show this little video. This is one of those like, speed through kind of things, but you can go ahead and make a mesh. And so there you go, got some basic clothes. All he's doing is going ahead and deleting all the faces there. So you just have the front and back, but leaving the edges, right? So you can remove faces, but leave the edges. So then you're going to throw on a cloth simulation, and there's a new option called sewing, so you can sew it. And then he has some like particular things to sew it correctly and to get it like really, really tight. All right, so I'll let him get to the magic of it. So bake the sew. It's going to do that. Look at that. So now it simulated the cloth going onto the character. So that's cool. That's the simulation. And then we can do another modifier, the cloth modifier, to apply it. And now you have Now you have a shirt cloth sim right inside of Blender. This is super, super cool. So if anyone wants to look this guy up, I'm not even going to try to pronounce that, but Jan, just a really, really cool video on how to sew cloth. I meant to bring that up earlier. And that some of that stuff came out in 3.5 as well. Okay, so there you go. It's just as a real quick, like we're touching a lot of things really fast. As I mentioned earlier, there are a bunch of improvements. There's a lot of cool stuff that's in here. Some things that I'm just not going to really touch on because there's just so much. And especially for those of you, by the way, who have, especially if you're on a Mac or if you're just using Blender with heavy scenes, this is probably mentioned a bunch of times, but for the rendering and syncing time, there's been a lot of big speed updates, especially on the Mac. So in addition to new features, you've got a lot of really cool speed ups for when you're syncing, which is the part where right before rendering. That's when it's building the BVH and all that stuff. All of that got sped up. Super, super cool. Okay, so real speedy. We touched on a lot of new things, but there you go. A lot of cool stuff in 3.6 and can't wait for 4.0 later this year.
Awesome. Thank you, David. Round of applause for David. Any questions for David on anything you just saw there?
Yeah, I put in the asset browser, I'm keenly interested in setting up and not easy. It sounds like with 3.6, so you're saying with relative path, basically, I can now make one blend scene that pulls assets from all our different crazy drives, make a blend thing, and then share that to everybody, and everybody can see all the assets in it. So, because we use different drives for different content, and I obviously want to collect all that crap in one asset browser so that anybody can just go and pull assets that they need. It sounds like the relative paths, is that what that's going to allow me to do?
Did you hear that, David?
Yeah, and I'll answer that. Hopefully you can see my screen a little bit. Just randomly pick one. So the first part is you have to, every user, every artist, etc., everyone's going to have to specify kind of the root directory for them. So here I am on my local machine here, and this is using OneDrive. So I'm going to say, okay, all of my stuff's going to be in OneDrive. So each and every single person individually, whether it's the D drive or G or F, doesn't really matter. They're going to have to specify kind of where that root directory is. So that's important. So everyone individually can say, oh, I keep my assets here. You over there, you keep your assets there. But then from that point on, let's say all of those people, they're all using OneDrive, for example. You're using F, and that's where you're putting your OneDrive. You're using D, that's where you're putting your OneDrive. Cool. You can do that now. Then as you drop in new items into there, all of that will, from that point, will be relative pathed out, which is really cool because that's exactly the point. If you have a bunch of people working remotely, they have to specify where the root of their asset library is. But from that point on, if you update yours on F, his on D will obviously update because he has OneDrive and they're syncing automatically. But when you drag and drop in those assets, into your Blender scene, those will be relative pathed, which is awesome because now everything will be relative to where that root directory, where that user specified. So it doesn't matter if you're on D or F, you're like, oh, up a folder, right, down a few folders, right? It'll use that as like its base. So that's the point, is to allow people who are working off of completely different drives or even operating systems to share assets. And it's no longer hard linked, oh, this asset is in D/whatever. No, now it's in just your root directory relative to that. So each person specifies their root directory, but then from that point on, everything is relative. So it's great. I'm super excited to implement that one ourselves because we've got 25 people all working remotely on different drives and different everything. So yeah, that's a big one. Hopefully that answers it.
Yeah,
Perfect.
Yep, awesome. And I will say, in terms of asset libraries, right? There's traditional asset libraries that you could download, and they're being released all the time. If you go to Blender Nation, people will put out collections of textures and models and base meshes and things like that. But there's also a lot of really great AI tools, which we've covered in prior meetings, where you can have plugins directly in Blender and just use a textual description to say, looking for chipped brick wall with stucco falling off and vines growing on it. And it'll use generative AI techniques to literally just create that like an 8K texture on the fly. Like an example of that, let's say I was looking at just the other day. Whoops, let me just do a desktop share. I always got to select with sound. There we go. Okay. Is like with Poly. Yeah, with Poly AI. Let's see if that's it. Yeah, so this is both a texture library, and you could literally describe in a text box like what you're looking for and say generate, and it'll basically generate it for you. There's another piece of AI. Let's see. Hold on one sec. Let me just do this. Oops. Where are we? Go to chat. Dropped a link in here. Whoops. There we go. So this is an example of a paper and a tool that these folks wrote that lets you just describe in textual form the mesh model that you're looking for, and it'll generate it for you. And there's a number of these out there. This is a relatively new one, and it generates higher quality meshes than previously, right? So again, you don't need to go to TurboSquid anymore. You just need to literally, ask it to create stuff like this. Yeah.
Is this a scraper, or does this make it geometry? Is this pulling stuff from wherever?
So
is it going, I will make this thing unique?
Yeah, no, it'll make it unique, but all of these AI models are trained on something, right? So there's a good chance that they took maybe the world's CC0 meshes or maybe images. You can do this just from an image. You can take a photograph of something, and this thing will create a mesh for you. So, and that's like all of these things are trained on something. So who knows what their data set was? They might actually describe it in here, but I just think that's really cool. I mean, your asset libraries have just gotten infinitely large, right?
Can I share one thing before I step out that is also kind of in that same vein?
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, so it's like I'm super into AI. I think it's a great way to like increase creativity, and I know it's scary, but I just think like it's a cool tool. Let's us get to creation faster. And here's one. You can search for Pano head, and so these guys went ahead and did a lot of photographs, but you don't need to do that. You just need a single photograph from the front, and it generates a full 3D head. How cool is that? So that's a
just
cool
a 2D image of the head, or
yeah, just a straight on 2D image of the head. And because it has a bunch of data on generally how those heads will be made, they've just done their own research. This is from University of Wisconsin, so it's pretty cool. And TikTok sponsored it, by the way. But now you have this full 3D model that gets generated. That's pretty awesome. And this is all on GitHub, so you can go ahead and pull this and build it yourself. Same in line with kind of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So yeah. And
of course, if you have a 3D turntable of a head, then there are other tools that'll create meshes from that for you, right? Nice. Awesome open source tools. Yeah, cool, exciting times, eh? Yeah, any other questions from the group on anything we saw so far?
That tool you showed that's generating the models from a photo, is that free?
Yes. So you're talking about this one here. Yeah, 123-45, I think.
That's what it's called?
I believe so, yeah. So there's actually a link. I'll put a link to it into the slide notes, and again, just email sterling@pixelfire.org. I'll send you a copy of it. I have not tried the tool itself. No, it's on my list of things to play with. Okay, fantastic. So look, we've been going for an hour-ish, a little over, okay, hour and a half. I think, why don't we go ahead and take a break? And then Darius, are you with us? Awesome. Good to see you, Darius. Let's take a 15-minute break. I encourage you, again, get up, shake hands with everybody in the room, find out what they do, have a chat to folks, and yeah, we'll reconvene. We're reconvening in about 10 past. We have our next speaker. So I'd like to introduce, let's see, we've got Darius Clark. Darius has actually been to a number of our meetings in the past. He's going to be talking about the Needle Engine exporter for Blender. And then following that, we'll have Kenneth Wilder talk a little bit about Blender and Blender's need Asylum visual effects. And with that, I'm going to let Darius take it away. Go ahead, Darius.
Thank you very much. Excellent. Yeah, I regularly have the voice of God capabilities like that. And so I've come from, let's see, so Serious Games. So that conference even included, I say, corporate, healthcare, even the military. It's fascinating to see people from all those industries come together at one conference to help learn the techniques, learning by doing, learning by play, which leads me to why I'm passionate about like virtual reality. That's like the epitome of media for learning by doing, learning by play. And while we have great software and tools like Unity that lets us create these interactive environments, distributing those experiences can be challenging. There's these silos that they created. So as you've probably heard, more and more virtual reality, more and more 3D experiences are being pushed out to the web as the technology gets more powerful at the network level, at the client, CPU, GPU level, and at the devices, the headsets, and so forth.
Oops. I just realized I need to do one more thing here to get you online, which is, oh, that's mine. Okay. Hey, can people online just let us know if you can hear us? Do you have your volume turned up on here?
Let me stop sharing.
Oh, yeah, they're saying yes.
They're saying yes? Yeah. Okay, fantastic. All right, good. Sorry, Darius, please continue.
No, that's what we do in this modern age. We verify we're communicating. Eventually, we'll get to the point where we're verifying that we're understanding. I suspect AI will have a role in that. They'll be monitoring you for understanding and probably just vibrate your phone when you start drifting off in your attention or something. So, where Blender comes in, and this great for creating 3D content, I said so important for us having mirror worlds and understanding and representing the world around us. We need VR technology, but we also need the web. And not too many tools bring all three of those together. Unity has an exporter, but it's very, it's the whole engine. You have to load the whole engine before you even see the first screen. So it's cumbersome for users to use. So what Marcel and Herb with Needle Tools, the company they've created, have developed is a bridge that I think matches this great sweet spot about creating content in some wonderful, free, democratized 3D tools like Blender, but getting it out to the web. And so they've made this export. They originally made it for Unity, which is a comfortable field for making these experiences, VR experiences, but why not have VR for the web as easy as you Blender developers can create it? So let me introduce you to their website. So they made 3D for the web. You can see 3D for the web. So what are we playing here? Some kind of GIF, I guess, or video. I guess we don't do GIFs anymore, video. But no, this isn't a video. They've actually generated their website is actually a 3D working on top of the great 3GS library. And in fact, not only, and it's my scrolling connected to their 3D 3GS environment, but they can actually transition between scenes. Here they're demonstrating light baking. Now, I think this particular homepage of theirs was built with Unity. I'm not sure, but you can do something very similar with Blender now. You saw that. I've got to give you a quick overview. So you can export shaders that are built into 3JS shader graphs. Let's see, did I miss anything? No, baked lighting. So a lot of the capabilities built in the 3JS, now that hardware can support it. Here we got audio playing. I haven't turned on the audio. So the web has the advantage of, running everywhere. But I kept talking about AR and VR earlier. And if you notice the buttons here, this web page can immediately take us into a VR experience. I don't have a headset plugged in now. Be great if I had brought a Quest. No time for that. But I could actually launch that scene into Quest at the moment from off their homepage, which I think is going to be fantastic for education, right? Have I confused it? I think I confused it. Let's just reload. Notice the reloading is pretty quick. These content isn't all that huge, and they're loading it dynamically. Let's see. This one's fun. Their castle builder you can do in a VR, and notice you saw the AR link. So the AR with your mobile phone works with these web pages as well. So to me, they hit the sweet spot. They connect with everything I care about for getting understanding, education, communication together. Let's see. Yeah, so there they are. We're all the different devices, one website, and a fantastic tool. But how do we do this? See, I'm still in 3D. I'm controlling it in 3D. So how do you use this tool? How do you create these wonderful environments? So let me take you to the top. Okay, here we go. Getting started. So they have the Needle engine, their own little engine that talks to 3GS that gets downloaded from your web page. Lightweight, and we can go to the download now. There's some prerequisites, particularly you need Node.js for their generating, which is very common in the web community, very standard way of creating a website. Versions of Blender they support, 3.3, 3.4, 3.5. As I also mentioned, they support Unity. Okay, so there's the download for Needle engine. Right now, their cost structure is very similar to Unity's, where it's free if you're a hobbyist. If you're doing it commercially, there's like let's look at the pricing. So basic indie, 200 euros a year, roughly what, $30 a month. It's within the realm of what we afford in these services. All right, so let me get down to Blender. So here's the download for Blender, that 20.6. I've had trouble with this on the PC. I've got a support ticket in with them, but I couldn't get it resolved before this morning. So I am just going to use their 18.6, I think, version of the Needle engine for Blender. So at that point, once you've downloaded that and you have Node installed, you're ready to start developing. So I'm going to transition now to an open Blender file I have. I downloaded this from Blender Kit, just one of their models. I found that handy, something to quickly demonstrate the exporter. I think I'm just going to move the light to where we can see the front of the building. Looks good. Now, there are some limitations. You can't export the wildest Blender scene that you've created or the wildest Unity scene that you've created. They do have some limitations to squeeze it, get it to fit within inside the constraints of a website, a web server. But I wish I could tell you what they are, but these guys are so brilliant. If I told you it can export this number of features from Blender, next week there'll be even more. So you can export the lighting, you can export the textures, you can export the models. You can export, as you saw, some of the shader graphs. There's a limited number of nodes that they support with the shader graphs, and you're also limited by what 3JS can do. But 3GS keeps improving as well, and they keep adding more and more features. So it's just, if you can't quite export what you want now, very soon you can. So this is a great tool for the future and what we're environments, and learning environments, teaching environments, I want to create for the future. So, all right. Now, another limitation, like for Unity, you cannot export your C# scripts. So all those great C# scripts you bought or imported or got from the asset store or developed, you cannot use with this tool. Versus the Unity exporter, where it takes it and translates it itself. What they want you to use with the Needle tool exporter is the native TypeScript or JavaScript scripts. And there aren't very many of those, but they've been adding some for you, and that keeps growing all the time as well. So what can I do in this scene as a developer if I want it more interactive? I've already imported the tool again for demo purposes, but if we go in Windows to Editor Preferences, I think in Mac File and Option Settings or Options, you go to where you want to do the add-on. So I've shown you how to download the add-on, then you just simply go to install like other plugins for Blender, go to downloads. Where did I download it to? Okay, so I downloaded it here. So this is the latest. I believe it works with Mac fine. I think they're having issues with PC, so I'm going to be using 18.1 for now for my demo. So you import that and install the add-on. Click the checkbox to activate it. That was the problem I was having with the latest version. Oh, I didn't mean to uncheck it. Okay, we're all good. So once it's activated, what changes in your Blender scene is you now under here for the scene properties, we have a couple new components from the add-on. So we have the Needle Experimental and we have the Needle Engine. So with the Needle Engine, this is the next step you need to do. You need to say where this project, the Needle files need to go for this project. So we just need to define some place. I'll just put a Blender, create a new folder. LA.Blend. All right, and accept that folder. And now it's going to start generating the project, generating the websites, the information, and generating the node project for the web server. So now I generate the project when I create the folder. And what we have here is we have now a button that takes us to that folder if we need to edit in it. We have a link out to the code editor. That's our default to Microsoft Code Editor, which is a great editor. Okay, so we need to use npm install to install the project directory. Let's do that next. I think if I try running the project, it does the install as well. Let's see.
Great to the demo gods.
Yeah. Start
Sacrifice
npm
my
install. Yeah. So this is where it communicates, you silly humans, why do you think I can do this instantly?
So while it's working on it, like how would you compare it to some of its competitors?
Great question. I'm not sure what would be a competitor to. I guess Unity would be the closest, but they generate websites. But what can you do to generate a VR web experience? There's just not that much out there. That's why I gravitated to this so quickly. Being a Unity developer and programmer and certified Unity instructor, that's how I first got introduced to this. But I think we cannot keep it secret from the Blender world. This is such a powerful tool that opens up, why do you create the content you create? It's not necessarily for yourself. A lot of it you do, but not all of it. Your end purpose is to get it out in the hands of people. And yeah, you could do great videos. We could put it on YouTube. We could do it for environment or corporations or for entertainment. But we do this for people, and the greatest number of people's out there on the web. And yeah, we can do linear content on the web with Blender, but why not open up this world of interactive 3D VR content on the web for the world, right? So I don't know what competitors they have. If you've heard of some, you can let me know. All right, so it's generating the project. Again, old computer, not the fastest one. Yours is probably better. Let me explain some of these other buttons here while it's working. Build development. So that's, I can just launch a web page right now from inside Blender that will have this content in it. I didn't want to do that quite yet. I did want to show you one more thing. Okay, so being experimental, they got things for backend, so for you techies, regenerate the component panels, print the web project path, and so forth. So this is just sort of open up logs and help you understand what's going on. But where I did want to take you is to the camera, because we were talking about interactivity. We don't want to just look at 3D models on the website. We want to interact with them. So when I go to the camera, we also have so other things they export, I should mention, is physics. So they map some of the physics capabilities of Blender onto the 3GS physics. So gravity, throwing things comes with it as well. You can export that. Let's see. Which of these is my camera? Is it that one? Okay, it generated the website. I haven't added any interactivity yet, but here we go. What does it generate? We say it's an export. What does it export? We got our index, HTML. We have the hourglass, which will go away in a second. It's trying to read the HTML and put it up there. I shouldn't have clicked on it. So we got your typical include files for a web page, nothing installed in that. Here we have the distribution folder inside my LA.Blend folder. Assets are interesting. So they use their default icon for the web page. There's our JavaScript, that's compressed. There's our CSS, that's compressed. And everything else about your scene, the animations, they've encoded with their own, I want to use the word protocol, I'm not sure that's right, into a GLB file. So they're using the GLB files extension capabilities and all that scripting, all that program, or no, the scripts are up here. All your models in your scene, all your lighting, all that is contained in this one GLB file, again, using industry standards. So it's brilliant how they've done this. So let's see. Before I exported and demonstrated it, I wanted to go to the camera. Because I wanted to show you some scripts, and they have some scripts that connect to the camera. And I'm not sure why I'm not seeing it yet. There we go. Okay. All right. So they have some TypeScript scripts. They're components. So let me add a component. So create a new component, write your own scripts. So here they have buttons and your animator animations. Those get exported from Blender. Again, there's some limitations on what they can export, but it's great. You know, you saw some animations going on in the in their web homepage. Animation loops. Okay. So I'm going to add a component, and this time I'm going to add no. Let's see, scroll down. Please scroll down. Thank you. Orbit controls. All right. So this is a script. And I didn't want networking. Let's close that. So orbit controls is a script in TypeScript that they've generated that will let you travel around around your scene on a web page. So this makes it worthwhile to be interactive to a limited degree. I don't know all the components they've had. It keeps changing. So networking, multi-person, multiplayer webs, virtual reality web experiences. Let's see. Object raycasters, playable directors, and on their website, on their documentation, and you can see the source code for all these, so you can make your own scripts or hire someone who's a website script and see how you can add the scripts that control your scene and know where the player is in your 3D scenes. Okay, so back to the scene. Build for uploading to the web. I thought they had the web server. I'm just going to cheat and open it with code and use their web server. Oh, I didn't generate with the orbiting tool, sorry. Yeah, let's open that one. And let's, do I not have it installed on this one? Go live. Yeah, open live server.
Are you normally a lefty on the mouse?
Hmm?
Are you normally lefty on the mouse? Because I was going to say we can pull that table out if you need us to.
I'm used to mouse footing where you use a mouse in 1-inch square space.
All right. Okay.
All right, so it's launched. It's going to localhost. It's launching on port 550, index HTML. And if everything went well, we should see our model in here in a second.
Does it have to load all 200 megabytes first, or can it stream one by one?
The simple answer is both. By default, it loads the whole scene, but they've got scripts that allow you to pull up. But then what you have to do is you have to break out your GLB file into separate GLB files so you can know which ones in which GLB file and load it dynamically. So, all right, so I'm going to probably say This is as far as I can get with a live demo. For production, watch it down here. It says it's finished. Not sure. Nope, still running.
Any other questions?
Yeah, so the first file, it made index HTML, right? So is it actually generating a website from scratch?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah, that's the word I like to use a lot describing this. Is just wow. You wonder, can it do this? And it's like, yeah, wow, it does it. That's why it needed the Node.js to generate the website. And it's just a few pages, just a few files. You saw that for a very simple website. So how are we doing? Beginning packing, finished. Okay. So let's see if I can go into code, run it again. I need more positive feeling, positive thinking. Well, it's obviously found the icon. All right, so let's see. I think I have a generated one here, so let's go to Blender. No, I think it's the one at home. All right, so yeah.
We do have a video demo you made in our Discord as well.
That's true. So the video Discord is at
for those that are unaware, the group has this Discord, so we can chat to each other in between meetings. So if you'd like an invite to the Discord, just ping me. I'm happy to send it to you. It's also really good just for asking questions. You know, there's a bunch of Blender professionals on it, either local, if you're looking for people that are looking for work or whatever. I think it's great at the beginning.
So would you be able to like walk around that castle in VR?
Yeah, that's what I did with the orbiting script.
Hello, my name's Darius Clark, and I would like to introduce you to the Needle engine.
And we'll let you use your WASD keys and wander around the scene.
Will it import like based off the scale that the model's at, so that, like say, like, if it's human scale, castle.
Exporter for Blender. This allows you to export a scene within certain limitations of complexity and textures.
You could walk through,
to a web page so that you could use that scene.
Yeah, here's video, and here
it will generate a compressed version of scripts
web page.
This one GLB file for all the objects and made available for you to view and test. Now you might ask, well, where is this? What can I do with it now? Let's go back to Blender, and there's other options down here. I'm going to stop the local server, and I'm going to go to the directory. So here it takes us to the export folder that we had created, and notice we have an index.html. Now this isn't the for production version. It's got all of Node in it to run the web server.
Edit the script, save the script.
But this shows you
the web page with it.
And it's using a Vite, VITE
online
template for generating the web page as your front end controller for the. So if you build for production, it will generate a compressed version without Node that you could just copy all those files to your web server. It doesn't depend on anything on the server other than to be able to serve up a web page. And if you look now, it's created the index.html, the includes. It's in a distribution folder under export, and it's got our assets.
They're,
And so here's the scripts,
yeah, please.
exported as JavaScript.
My feeling is you also have the
And
modeler as
everything from your scene, though, has been encoded into a GLB file.
sites and
Just one GLB file for all the objects in your scene.
so
So
you'll
thank you very much. I hope you found this interesting, and I look forward to seeing what you create.
was it demolish? Forget the terminology to reduce your polygon count to something that's decimate. That's the word. Yeah.
Like you used to have to do with game engines before.
Or apply your modifiers, right?
Yeah, apply modifiers.
Is there any possibility of this working now that they revitalized the game engine, which I'm very excited about, but I'll never have time to do any of it. But,
Partners.
Yeah, because I'm following a default queue, doing a whole tutorial, and actually making like a Mario game. Can that apply to this? If I made a game using the game engine that Blender revitalized, can that, is there any possibility to turn that to a website?
Okay, I'm going to say no on that one because the Blender game engine is designed to talk to the CPU and the hardware. It's compiled
It's not
code.
exportable.
It's not JavaScript. It's not.
I mean, it's exportable. Supposedly, you supposedly can make a game and put it up on a store, but that's a different process.
Yeah. It's not actually using web
It
technology.
doesn't. I'll never.
Yeah. I guess some competitors might be people that let you build games and online scenes for the web online and can let you import 3D models from Blender, but then you're stuck on their subscription service. This one is whatever website you generate, you've got the code, you've got the models, you can build it. So this is better than some of those services. I'd have to look up their names, but yeah. For a competitor, yes.
So it exported the scripts and then the, what was it, GDL file?
Yep.
GLB. Anyway, how, like if you had another static site that you were trying to get this onto, how would you do that?
I would ask your developer to look at the index.html and understand how to take the code out of it that you need to put in your own HTML files.
Okay.
So it's, yeah, the,
That answers your question.
yeah, and again, what excites me about it too is don't forget, AR and VR comes automatically. If your device can handle it and you've got the supports XR script attached, you just click the button with the right device and you're in AR and you're in VR from a web page. Automatically generated with this, you didn't have to do anything different.
So you can totally test this at home. If I had an Oculus.
Yeah, I have.
I can.
In fact,
like self-test.
Yeah, I have. Absolutely. And I haven't gone through all the great stuff they have on their website, but they have a showcase. And a lot of these in the showcase work in VR that you can just run from their website. Where'd it go? From the showcase, you can go to these websites in your Oculus browser and click on the VR button and try out their demos in 3D and in VR. And the same thing with your phones. All right, I don't want to take up all the time because I'm excited and I can easily do that. But I love your questions. You can talk to me afterwards. And it just opens up, I think, vistas of possibilities. Yeah, they did this on a web page. See, there's their AR button for this website. Okay, thank you.
We're going to hand things over to Kenneth. So, Kenneth, if you have a thumb drive, why don't you bring it up and we'll get it loaded. In the meantime, if there's anything else that anybody wants to announce that's kind of Blender related or Blender centric or even peripherally centric, if there's another open source tool that's really awesome that you want to let people know about, we'd love to hear about it. Commercial tool that integrates well with Blender, we'd love to hear about it. Books you've read, tutorials you've taken, conferences coming up, just go ahead and shout it out. Click on the wrong one. Yep.
Him and Blender secrets. It's awesome. So this is just a quick, this is me, 2020, so it's old. The idea.
You are spiteful. No one stands against Altura. Find them and kill them all! Careful, those blood samples are from all over the apocalypse. God only knows what's in there. Take them straight to my office. Pandora?
Yes, my love.
Could you please come here and show us what George told you?
Of course.
All right. You bet.
Yeah. So that was, this is all Lightwave, Octane, and 3ds Max. This was, I only used Blender in a very small capacity up to this point, although I did use it at Rhythm and Hues. I was working in the box division. I wasn't in the studio like he was. I was in the commercial division, black box division. Robert Baldwin, who I saw was a member here, was also, he was one of those guys, one of us, 40-year Lightwave guys. And I noticed that Blender had a very, very powerful, I noticed the particle system was incredibly fast. Needed rain on a car and had a really complex hull, and Lightwave is a nightmare. It would take forever. Particles fall through everything, no matter what I did. Blender nailed its first one, put a plane in, perfect collision, everything rolled off the thing. I was like, okay, well, I'm done. So I couldn't convince anybody else, but I knew what I was seeing. So what we do at the asylum, I'm going to show 2 more reels for things that we're looking for. We are currently looking for artists. We are currently hiring for current jobs, upcoming jobs. If you've seen Asylum films at all, Asylum, probably the biggest thing they're known for is the Sharknado movie. But they, in everything around all of that, they make those crazy BB movies, Dragon Head versus Squirrel Fish and stuff like that. But they're a lot of fun. The schedule was very, very tight. We get anywhere from, I'd say, 6 to 8 weeks. If for 8 weeks we're lucky, that's on the boy. You got that crazy time. 6 weeks is more like our turnaround, and I mean from start to finish. I mean the whole thing done, edited, and put into the show. Artists, our VFX movies average anywhere from 80 to 200 VFX shots per movie. That's right. And that's everything. All CG, combination of comp and CG, some 2D stuff, some 2D tracking, lots of tracking and stuff like that. But what we're looking for currently, we have a movie called Blind Water that we're currently doing, which is about a shark that's after a blind woman in the boat, and the shark somehow is really angry, really wants to chiller and eater. And we need character animators. We need people who have some experience with doing character animation. That would be fantastic character animation, but you should be comfortable with secondary animation, if you know what I mean, where you move the thing once and then you put follow through. If you can at least get that far, then yeah, because a shark, obviously, when it moves, its fins lag with its movement and tail and all that. You'll need to be able to put those things, if you know people or you yourselves can do that. As far as outside of that, that's all I can really discuss with you. We don't work with representatives. We work with individuals directly. So if you say, well, I'm with Fiverr or whatever those things are, we don't work with those agencies. So please, that's important. I know a lot of Blend people do go through those services, but we like to work with artists directly. We do work remote. Remote's not an issue. So I would say if you know someone, you have a reel, obviously we'll need to see things, but the more you can show us, the more we'll get an idea if there are people that we can fold in. But we literally are looking for people like now. I mean, if somebody sent my supervisor a good looking reel and you agree to the schedule and the pay, you get hired today. So with that said, that's pretty much what I'm here for. We've had, I'm actually very pleased to hear that there's a bigger VFX branch out with the Blender community. I didn't realize it because, Lightweight, we had New Tech and NAB, all this crazy stuff. So there was always this big video production presence that was always getting out there. And I really wasn't seeing it with Blender, because believe me, I put out the word to everybody, and I must have did it wrong. But I went to Andy Price, Anson K. I just looking for people. Zero, not even. You're doing it wrong. Go here. I got absolutely nothing back. And so I was kind of worried, going, what's going on with the community? But I'm glad to hear that I was probably just reaching out in the wrong. That's why I knew coming here was probably a good place to do it, because then we can get to the Hollywood people properly that understanding can look at the stuff. So
and yeah, I was talking to Ken prior. There's just a couple of places I usually point people to. Number one, there's on Blender Artists, there's a paid jobs board there if you're looking for Blender people. Number two, on Blender Nation, there's a job postings board. And number three, there's a couple of newsletters that go out. This is a relatively small meeting for us today, but we have 1,500 people on our LA Blender meetup site. You're welcome to post there. And if you're looking for somebody, I'm happy to send an email on your regard to those 1,500 people, which has a pretty wide reach. But there's also a couple local newsletters that just cater specifically to visual effects, game studios, film and TV. And you can just put your role descriptions in there and then it'll reach them. So, and I see Blender advertisements for professional people all the time. And I know we've done hookups here. And then I guess the last thing I'll mention is obviously we pull together this LA.Blend conference next year in April that is really meant to be a talent connect for Blender people. So if you're shopping or looking for a role, that's the place to go. Back to you, Ken.
Can you show us one more thing?
Of course.
Yeah.
On your USB drive? Or?
Yes, on the USB drive.
Okay.
This, if you go up to the top, you should see. Yes. Second one, 8 versus Mega 8.
The Mega.
This is this was the show that I pretty much forced Blender into Asylum's pipeline. This was the show that I said, well, tell me whether or not Blender can handle our production, and it passed with flying colors.
Mecha 8 program is complete.
Our target, a chemical weapons factory full of dress code.
Americans come here without any consequence.
We must turn their own war machine against them. Proceed.
The Mega Ape is in motion.
Let the Americans witness the terror they have built.
Madam Deputy Secretary, Mecha Ape has been activated outside of our control.
We saw what Abraham and that lizard did in Washington, D.C.
Push a wild animal far enough, it'll reach the breaking point.
The mecha ape is a walking arsenal. Make sure that thing doesn't reach Chicago. I have to get on board! The Bolo Dress FID has assumed control of mecha ape.
We got another Washington, D.C. on our hands. We need to fight this with an appropriate response. We'll send the ape.
We can help her.
Okay, now!
The warhead has been taken. There's a live warhead on board. Evacuate the city immediately.
Dude, that is awesome.
Yeah.
It's so great.
What did you use Blender on?
The gorilla was completely rendered. What we did,
Or the Beckett?
sorry, that's Lightwave.
Oh, okay.
If any of you know Dave Morton, one of the original Foundation modelers, I mean, those are the guys who make anything, make Voyager and everything you want. So he made the mecha. This is all Blender. I brought it over from Lightwave. We used mocap to do the motion. I brought it into Lightwave via the MDD format, and I was stunned that I was able to paint fur on that. But I did not care. I mean, I didn't have to, I didn't just paint. I'm like, are you kidding? Then it moved and it moved with the everything. I was completely blown. I had no idea that could even be possible. So when I showed everybody, I was like, look, this is what I'm able to do. Trust me, guys, I know you're nervous, but I can do this. I can get this stuff over. Let's go with this pipeline. And like I said, it worked brilliantly. I was able to do 4K. This is all 4K rendered. And again, I was talking earlier about the denoiser is fantastic. You set the samples right. I was getting 4Ks under a minute with this guy still signing path trace and all the things turned on. This city, that's Unreal. We combined Unreal Engine, Lightwave, Blender, and I think we have and then After Effects, but because of FBX, and it's mainly because of FBX that and the NBD format that made this possible. Because FBX, cameras, talking between all the software. Once you fix, you got to once we know, okay, make sure this is this, and then they'll all talk. Meshes and animations and stuff seem to transfer out. That's another thing I was glad to see that NBD format is native in Blender, so that was cool. So that already had not to rely on Olympic, which doesn't work that well in Lightwave currently. That's what we were able to do: render in Lightwave, render in Blender, render out alphas, and then comp it all, comp it all in After Effects. But the motion blur and things like that we use are real smart. I don't bother rendering motion blur. It hasn't rendered motion blur in 10 years. Real smart pretty much takes care of all of that. But so After Effects for the smoke and fire, Blender, Unreal for the environments.
So do you export environments from Unreal and comp it into After Effects, or you do the other way around?
No. Everything is comped in After Effects in the end. So if we need a backdrop, when the camera is made, whatever animator makes the camera, they go, okay, we put that camera in Unreal, find the appropriate spot and environment, render that out as almost as a plate in Blender. So we don't try to. Unreal doesn't export enough different layers for us to be comp heavy. It works better as a put it in the background and put stuff on top of it, because it doesn't give us good depth maps and things like that, so we can isolate out. I'm sure that's coming, but right now we pretty much just treat it as just render a backdrop, Now we got a matte painting thing that's we're using real time. And but because as long as the camera matches, the key is that as long as the camera matches, we can make it work.
Do you export reflection maps and stuff like that?
Sometimes other guys do that. I'm more of a get it in camera type person. So and Blender, I was like, everything was perfect. I'm done. Yeah, there was no need to export all those layers and stuff. Not with this. I mean, that's the one pass.
That's
So when you're working with these extremely short turnaround times, you mentioned 6 to 8 weeks. I don't know if that's for one shot for the entire movie or like, but it sounds short. Like, what are some of the shortcuts you have to make? Because I mean, you have to be super creative with your tools and like how you choose to build your scene and all that kind of stuff. So, like, you have any stories or any like nightmares? Yeah.
Oh, yeah, a few of those. But no, you. I mean, when the plate comes in, we use shot grid. The description is up of what it needs to be. One of the things that we can't afford to do is any previews or storyboards, which is good and bad, because what happens when we start a movie, we have about 2 weeks to make what we call a screener reel, and that's a one pass of everything. It doesn't have to be polished. It doesn't have to be, but what that turns into is the previs versus a first look for the bosses to look at, because they can't. They have to kind of see it before they, and that makes sense. And that's what storyboards and animatics are for. And we were like, well, guys, we don't have time for that. So we agreed to make our screener, like if this were going to a screener, it would just be the background. The camera would be there so they can evaluate that, but the lighting might not be perfect. It might not be 4K, things like that. So we work like that as fast as we can to get up to the screener. Then they make their notes of, A should be over to the left, those buildings, turn them around, the light should be coming over here. Don't like that explosion, a bigger one. Those notes come in, and then we just work like crazy to address them. And pretty much however long, there's this kind of second screening that they like to look at of a more polished pass just before we have a delivery. And then they determine, okay, it's good enough, let it out, or no, the client's being really picky. These shots here, go back, redo them, relight, and whatever. And it just doesn't stop until it's all done. Yes.
And you clean up your motion data, all the motion data, like all your
over the mocap.
Yeah.
We got lucky on this one. It was actually pretty clean. We use a guy called a mocap Mike, and that's pretty much all he does is motion capture. And the motion capture comes in surprisingly clean. I did almost no cleanup on this. Now, but if you notice, you're not seeing his feet all the time. Motion cap, is notoriously glitching weird with feet, or if a character has to bend down or sit and things like that. And it's still the same even today, that there really is no perfect mocap system. So for that, we would go in and clean up if it's really, really bad or egregious, but totally lucked out on this. I did almost no motion cap. Okay. But if we have to do it, sure. I noticed that Blender has some really good tools for cleaning that. We're using lightweight before, and like, nightmare. Don't want to do that. But please,
awesome.
Yeah, let Sterling know, and we are definitely looking reels. This contact stuff would be awesome. Thank you.
All right, yeah, you bet. Thanks, Ben. Okay, so I love this ape. I'm definitely gonna be cheering for the ape when I watch this film. So fantastic. All right, so we're kind of towards the end of our meeting. We do have a little bit of time. If anybody else has anything else they want to show, any takers in the room? If you have a URL, we'll type it in. Yeah. Yeah, it's probably faster to plug in a USB drive, or if you want to just use your own machine, we're on a Teams meeting, so you could just join the Teams call and then desktop share. All right. Okay. All right, great. Anyone else have anything to share? Okay, so I will, just while you're kind of getting that set up, I'll mention a couple of things. So, in terms of trainings, CG Cookie, which is kind of one of the big kind of commercial online training organizations, who actually are one of the primary drivers behind the LA Blender conference. So we're working directly with Wes and Jonathan and his whole crew. Jason Van Gumster's on our team. He represents the community at large and Blender artists and that kind of thing. They have a series of new trainings out for geometry nodes. They have a series of new trainings out. They're called Minimalism. So if you kind of want to play around with Blender, but you don't really have a lot of time, they've actually made a series of, actually here, I'll just bring it up and show it to you. They have a series of 2-hour tutorial sessions. So if you have 2 hours you can spare, they're kind of great sessions. So I've been caught up doing a whole bunch of other stuff. So let's see, hold on, let's just browse the library. Let's see if I can find this. Yeah, so I mean, this is kind of like where you do get your Blender basics and that kind of thing. So these sessions here, so minimalism. Let's see if I can log in and just show you real quick a couple of those. Oops. Do that, do that, do that. And so, like, these are some of the things that they teach you. So, it's kind of like space.
Our first minimalistic sessions project is this planet scene for a few reasons. One, space is cool. I think everyone can relate to the mystique and majesty of outer space. Two, I want you to...
hold on. Course over. Here we go. This is probably faster. Yeah, so you do these kind of like planet scenes. You do kind of like awesome looping patterns, kind of more MoGraph stuff. You do some like, quick graphic stuff. You do some like hallway shapes, some nice lighting, kind of realism. And so anyways, pretty awesome. I love the idea that somebody's creating short stuff that you can, like, if you haven't touched the product in a while and you just want to get your feet dirty or your hands dirty again. That's awesome. Anyone else? So just as I'm super curious just to get the names of the studios that are in the room. So what's the studio that you work for again, Sean?
COSA.
That's right. COSA. And would you say, do you guys use Blender at all these days? Or I know you're mostly working in. So,
only me.
Only you, but like.
I think, yeah, he's not right now. I'm not totally sure how long he's been with us, and I don't know how long he'll be with us, but
cool.
I've seen him do a couple Blender things, so.
All right.
It's kind of interesting.
Any other studios on this side of the room? Sorry, I missed the section where you guys were introducing yourselves because I was busy setting up. You guys work with any? Do you work for studios or independent? No. Okay.
Blender for models. I'm in the tutorial, so it's like I'm not part of Barnstorm. And I
sure.
Say the VFX supervisor on the last Amazon show used it to create things.
Yeah, we've had Barnstorm in here. The founders of Barnstorm have actually come in and presented on what they're doing with Blender. We've had them on panels and stuff. They do some really awesome stuff. Yeah, thanks for that. And then on this side of the room, I'm sorry, I didn't catch where you were working.
Independent studio, Perfect Infinitives, or I, for short. Find us in Instagram basically.
Okay.
So it's like the pod without the E.
Sorry, what was the whole name without the acronym?
Like the pod without the E.
Like the pie. Okay. Got it. Like the pie of the number, huh?
Yeah.
You guys must celebrate Pi Day. Okay. Awesome. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, when I was at Sony ImageWorks, they were using it in further concept design and development on Spider-Man and the Spider-Verse.
Yeah.
I used to have some example shot that I'm making to clients that you couldn't use it, so I can't show it. But yeah, so there a lot of concept artists that I was using it to do all their blocks that got modeled 3D and those and stuff. And then as a digital building, I use a little bit for some concepts as well. So I do see it being used in that in the pre-production areas of some students.
Yeah. So apparently there was some Blender that was in the latest Spider-Verse movie. They used grease pencil for that.
Yeah.
So that's cool. Obviously, the majority of the film is not done in Blender, but it is kind of cool. Like Blender manages to sneak its way into just about everywhere. So okay.
Okay. Well, I'll maybe while I log in, I'll talk a little. Oh, this might open your email if it does. Okay, no, it doesn't. Okay. I've been trying to. Do you guys know that like it's called big tech art style? Do people know what I'm talking about? I'll show some examples when I share the screen. You've seen it before. If you don't know what I'm saying, it's like think of like a Facebook ad where all the characters have like sort of circular kind of limbs and bodies. I'm sure you can visualize it looking at Meta. And they have the dithered shadows. I've been trying to come up with a way to sort of replicate that, and I've had some success using the Blender compositing nodes, which I had not used before like this time last year, and I just think they're awesome. I know they're not a super new feature. My God, open the Google app on your iPhone.
Good. If you're using two-factor authentication, good for you. If not, so I'm a cybersecurity guy.
Oh yeah.
It's owned by day, so if you're not using two-factor authentication, you should be.
Okay, well,
use strong passwords.
This is a demo of 2FA.
Password manager.
Oh yeah. Well, that I do use. Okay. And then I also wanted to pull up.
So one thing I think I forgot to mention is SIGGRAPH's obviously coming here to LA in August. On August 6th, I believe it is, to the 5th, but I think it is the 6th. There's a Blender Birds of a Feather. The Blender Foundation comes, room fills up with a lot of Blender studios, artists, people. It's totally free to get in. It happens before the SIGGRAPH kicks off. If you're not familiar, SIGGRAPH is a gigantic graphics conference that's really amazing to attend. Again, totally free to jump into the Blender Birds of a Feather. They're called Blender Bot. The Blender Foundation presents on what they're doing. And then there's usually like a whole bunch of other people that present at that on cool stuff that they're doing with Blender. So it's a large gathering of people. Obviously, people fly in for SIGGRAPH, so you get Blender people from all over North America. It's really great. Recommend you check it out. I'll be there. And we may have some announcements today as well. At that show.
I had some question. Compositor. Do you guys think that real-time compositor viewport? Promising. But not very useful yet.
Yeah.
I wouldn't replace.
Okay, how's this?
Oh, okay.
Okay, so the first thing we'll do is.
I know guys I've been bugging you for ages and ages.
Share screen.
More positive.
Yeah, definitely next time I'll be in a jump drive.
That's all right.
Yeah.
And then.
Much easier.
What else did I do? That's right, disconnected video.
Yeah.
A bit of an interesting thing was, but we'll see, because I mean, if they can push it along far, it works like that, then sweet. I guess it's easier, it's from their end.
And
They've
then,
already got so much going on.
Okay.
in time in 3D,
We're all set.
So much harder than 2D.
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
minimize that.
Rewrite.
Can people online hear us and see the share?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
It's not on the iPad.
Okay, all right, take it away.
It's good.
Why don't you introduce yourself, where you work, and then what you
Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah, my name's Katie. I work at Lightstorm Entertainment. This is not affiliated with that. This is my own personal things. But like I mentioned, I've been trying to come up with a way to kind of like replicate the big tech art style, which now that I have you all have seen it. Now that I have the screen share, oops, not big tech. You'll know what I mean when I type it in. So it's like guys like this. Like that's a terrible small JPEG, but they didn't have these like blocky limbs, and this is funny, and like simple faces like this. So I was just trying to come up with a way to do this with 3D technology, and this is what I came up with. This is just a test that I rendered out to show. Oops, this is like one. It's part of a bigger project I'm trying to do that I would want to use this style. So the way I did it was I don't really think I don't have a good blend file to go through. Maybe sometime in the future I can show my compositing nodes set up, but I have this I do the animation in Maya, and I have these scripts that like export it as Alembic, and then import the same Alembic into Blender, and then I make a JSON with all the materials and the lights, the relevant settings, to kind of like port them over and recreate the scene. The reason I would like to do the animation in Blender, but I'm just not skilled enough with the Blender animation toolset yet. So I figure. But baby steps towards weaning myself off Autodesk. but I can show maybe, I think in this video I have some. Oops, I think in here, yeah. See, I uploaded this 10 minutes before the meeting. I have, yeah. So this was let me full screen it. Oh, it's oops. My OBS. So this is in Maya. We don't need to look at that. It's just I baked all the animation so that the Alembic export would work just with the geometry. I wouldn't have to like try to deal with exporting all the relationships. And then I think I pull up the script here at some point. Yeah, there it is, baking. And then I actually, yeah, here we go. So I have this script that I run that launches Blender from the Maya Python runtime, which is kind of strange. But it's a cool feature of, well, you can launch anything from the Python, but anyway, from a subprocess. And then here it is. It's like brought in my export, and then I think eventually I'm going to turn on materials view, and you can see that like the materials got set up. Maybe eventually I turn it on. Maybe right at the end. There we go. And it also so I don't know how much you guys have worked with like the compositing, just the compositing nodes in general, but the way you can, what makes Blender really cool is that there's a good feedback loop between the nodes and then the scene collections that you have. So that's like all this stuff up here, and then if you switch between these different layers, you can have different visibility settings and different parts of your scene enabled, and then render all those out into layers, and then composite as you would normally. But it's so great because you don't have to switch programs. So I learned about it and I loved it so much, and that's why I used it. I think we're under siege. Someone trying to come in. Anyway, but the way I got this kind of flat look was by do I have it pulled up? Oh yeah, I have the teams. I think it's because I'm in full screen. There we go. The way I got this flat look was by rendering out like a diffuse pass, and then I have sort of a light map by a material override that's just white, so it renders the entire, like all the 3D parts of the scene in white, and then I clamped it with one of the clamp nodes to get this sort of like harder edge shadow than would otherwise look if you're just like rendering it normally. And then I mix back in the diffuse color. And then there's some stuff with like I have a shadow catcher where you blend a material to catch the shadow, which looks like it's inverted on this test. So I need to add in an invert node. But yeah, that's kind of what I want to show. I know we're at 1:30. But
Are you overlaying?
Sorry?
Are you overlaying a texture over the whole frame? Like what's making it looks noisy?
The noise, yeah, the noise is it's not right over. It's not overlaid the whole thing. Although I have done some stuff where I do overlay a texture at the end, like in let's see, what are all my videos? Like I used kind of a similar thing with this. This was for like a freelance project I did, and that hopefully you can see. Oh gosh, it has noise. Goodbye. Oh, how does this? There we go. I don't know how easy you can see, but that has like a paper texture overlay at the very end. Yeah. That noise was. In my test, I didn't have enough lights in the scene, I think, because basically I have I put that noise on the shadowed areas to kind of make it look more similar to like this sort of effect. I noticed a lot of them have dithered shadows. Yeah. So that's why the noise was in there. But I'd have to look at my compositing nodes to know exactly how, if I'm just mixing it in, or I think I maybe just have a noise texture and then I mask it with the shadows from the scene, so that's what it comes from. But yeah.
You talk about the whole grand scheme of the project and stuff?
Oh, yes. Well, it's the classic like out of scope personal project, but it's eventually it's about online shopping, and so this character is going to be kind of in like a Amazon. It's not going to be Amazon, it's going to be Amazon ad, and then she sort of gets like sucked into one of the products that she ordered, and the environment that she gets sucked into is not going to have this style. It's going to have a much different one. So that's why I kind of wanted to get I wanted to investigate how I could like recreate this very specific style. And then the thing she gets sucked into is a mattress. I don't know if you guys have ever ordered a mattress online, but they come in a box, and it's very funny. And then she comes out the other side and leaves a 5-star review. So it's probably gonna be a couple minutes whenever I finish it.
What do you do at Windstorm?
Oh, I do like tools development and TD stuff. So like, things are broken, trying to figure out what's going on. Yeah. I started in the render wrangling department.
You must the right tools for, right?
A motion builder, actually.
Oh.
Although there's like, as you can imagine, many proprietary libraries. So it's so far removed from just the kind of working like natively in motion builder. But yeah, that's the main application.
All right, thanks.
Yeah, thanks for letting me show and tell. I know how to close out of here.
All right, cool. Yeah, I'll close all those.
Oh, I didn't log out.
I'll log you out here. Awesome. So so this is the part of the meeting, I guess, where we do here. Where we usually go over and just grab some beverages and hang out. So let me show you where we're going. And maybe Sean, you could be our Pied Piper again.
Lost 5 people last time.
I mean, to be honest, that they're not completely lost. They know where they are, right? But basically, what we're doing is, let's see if I can get it right. Do you remember what the name of the place was?
No, I know you walk into the plaza. It's on the left side. It's a pizza place. It's next to the Mexican place. I think it's on London.
Okay, hold on. Let me. Let's see if I can figure it out.
Come out of the library, walk right, go to the little bridge. It's across the street, shopping plaza.
Tavern Pizza. That's the one. Okay.
Oh, that's the name of the place?
Directions from. Let's see, Culver City, Julian Dixon Library. So walking, it's 10 minutes. So basically, if you walked out these front doors just outside of our meeting room, made a right and just went that way, it's basically kind of a straight shot all the way down Overland. There's a nice pathway, and then you pull in and there's a little tiny place here. So let me just do a quick check that they're open, because that would be awkward. Let's see. Tavern Pizza looks like open. Fantastic. Yeah, and they're really friendly. They've got a good set of taps. They've got wine and non-alcoholic stuff and decent food and outdoor patio. It's really small. But yeah, I hope to see you there. And again, first round of drinks is on me.
Take bagel, there's bags. Seriously.
Yeah.
Can't eat any, so.
Take bagels, stick up your box, stick up your laptop. And yeah, so Sean is in charge of leading people over. It's going to take me a few minutes to pack up, but thanks everybody for coming. I hope you guys had a good time. If there's something else you'd like to see here, we're super open to feedback on how we can be better. Obviously, we did a little less marketing for this one, so the group is a little smaller. The next one will probably be much larger. That's going to happen in about 4 months' time with the next version of Blender. So yeah, thanks everybody. Thanks.